A dramatic move by the federal government today, announcing major temporary tax breaks for Canadians leading into the holidays. Good afternoon. The Prime Minister is in Toronto today and unveiled new affordability measures, saying Canadians are struggling and families are worried as the holidays approach.
If passed through Parliament, the measures would see the federal sales tax removed from essential goods, children's clothing, and other items.
For 2 months, starting December 14th, we're going to remove the GST, HST from groceries, 100% of groceries, all groceries. We're going to remove the GST from restaurant meals, takeouts, fast food. Removing the GST from beer and wine. Removing the GST for essentials like kids' clothing, footwear, diapers, and toys. All tax-free, removing the GST and HST. For 2 months, Canadians are going to get a real break.
The Prime Minister also announced Canadians who worked in 2023 and earned up to $150,000 will receive a $250 check in the spring. About 18.7 million people are eligible for the checks, which will cost the government about $4.7 billion. The GST break is expected to cost another $1.6 billion. Here's a list of the items for which there will be temporary GST relief: children's clothing and footwear, car seats and diapers, children's toys such as board games, dolls, and video game consoles, prepared foods including vegetable trays, pre-made meals and salads, and sandwiches, restaurant meals, whether dine-in, takeout, or delivery, snacks including chips, candy, and granola bars, beer, wine, cider, and pre-mixed alcoholic beverages below 7% alcohol by volume, books, print newspapers, and puzzles for all ages, and Christmas trees. CTV's Vashi Capellos has been listening to this announcement from Ottawa.
She brings us her reaction to the temporary tax relief.
Hi there. Yeah, a really stunning and significant announcement from the federal government, from the federal Liberals, who have been for a number of months now in political hot water, trailing the Conservatives by double digits. Two new polls out this morning from Angus Reid and Abacus Data both show the Liberals and the NDP tied for second place, well behind the Conservatives. I lay that groundwork only to set the context for today's announcement, because this is something the Prime Minister in the past has argued against: cutting checks, putting more money into the economy on the demand side of things. He has said that will exacerbate problems around inflation, but that's exactly what he's doing: $250 checks to every Canadian who makes under $150,000 a year. Then there's the GST holiday, an NDP idea first pitched a number of weeks ago on a host of items, everything from your diapers to a car seat to beer and wine. That holiday lasts for 2 months starting on December 14th. But, and there is a big but, it is contingent on legislation passing in the House of Commons.
I really hope that all parties in the House get behind this so we can pass this quickly, so that Canadians can get this relief as soon as December 14th.
Which normally wouldn't be a big deal. My guess is most political parties aren't going to want to look like they're in opposition to Canadians paying less for their groceries. The problem is the House is currently paralyzed. There is no legislation coming in, being debated, or going out. So there's going to have to be some kind of deal arrived at between the Liberals and the NDP in this case in order to move this forward and make it happen for Canadians. The politics of it, though, will continue to be fascinating. Something the Prime Minister used to argue was not a smart economic measure is one that he is employing today. He says that the inflation situation is not as bad as it was 2 years ago. The context is different, so he's arguing in favor of doing something like this today. But I can guess that the opposition Conservatives will have none of it. Back to you.
The announcement by the Prime Minister comes in the wake of a plan by the Ford government in Ontario to send out $200 checks. We're getting reaction from Premier Ford's office this hour. A spokesperson for Premier Ford says Ontario has already eliminated the provincial portion of the HST on children's clothing, shoes, diapers, books, newspapers, and qualifying food and beverages. The spokesperson says this is on top of the $200 taxpayer rebate, the gas tax cut, the scrapping of the license plate sticker fee and tolls, and saving transit riders up to $1,600 each year with one fare. And on behalf of Premier Ford, she says, the best thing the Liberal government can do right now is ditch, or at least, at the very least, pause any hike in the carbon tax, which is set to increase for the 6th time on April 1st.
We'll continue to follow that story, but in other news, there is a significant development today in the investigation into the death of a baby at a Midtown apartment. Police have now charged the child's mother. Investigators say they initially received a call from the baby's father yesterday morning that his child was missing. Police arrived at the building at Roselawn and Marley Avenue and found the 4-month-old with critical injuries. The baby was pronounced dead in hospital. Police say the infant's mother, 30-year-old Caressa Edwards, has been arrested and charged with failing to provide the necessities of life. She's scheduled to appear in court today. The Homicide and Missing Persons Unit continues to monitor the investigation.
As convicted serial killer Paul Bernardo prepares for a parole hearing, officials say they're working to ensure family members of his victims can attend in person. CTV News spoke Wednesday with a lawyer for the families of Kristen French and Leslie Mahaffey. Bernardo was convicted in the violent kidnapping, sexual assaults, and murders of the 2 teens in the 1990s. While serving a life sentence, he's entitled to parole hearings. The families have been told they would only be able to be present to present victim impact statements virtually. But we've since heard the Parole Board of Canada that it's working to accommodate the in-person presentation of statements for those who'd like to do so.
Turning now to the city's latest homicide. Yellow crime tape surrounds a home in the McCowan and Finch area today following a fatal stabbing.
A man is dead and the victim's son arrested at the scene. CTV's Janice Golding is live in Scarborough with the details. Janice.
Hi, Nathan. Yes, a man in his 60s is dead and his son is in custody following a late-night stabbing that took place in an Agincourt home overnight.
We're very sad and very upset.
Now, this woman who identifies herself as the victim's sister says her brother was 66 years old. Her nephew, a 32-year-old man who police arrested at the scene. Toronto Paramedic Services said they received a call at around 11 last night to come to a home on Whitley Castle Crescent near Finch and McCowan. The father was located with injuries and pronounced dead at the scene. Speaking to reporters outside the home, the victim's sister said her nephew had been struggling with his mental health.
I told him, take him to counseling or doctor. He don't like to go. He always, mommy asked to come and counseling. Then they said, my son, okay, that's it.
Upset, it bothers me, how can a son,
I surprised, I shocked, I really feel sad.
Charges have not been announced so far. The homicide unit is investigating. Reporting live from Janice Golding, now back to Nathan.
Thank you, Janice. Police services from across the province gathered in Oakville this morning to launch the annual Festive Ride campaign. Police will be hitting the streets across Ontario, keeping an eye out for drivers who get behind the wheel while impaired by alcohol or drugs. This comes as OPP says 44 people have died this year in crashes on the roads. This is involving impaired drivers. Steve Meehan was hit head-on by an impaired driver on the 403 nearly 3 decades ago, resulting in significant injuries and trauma. He spoke on behalf of Mothers Against Drunk Driving today.
How many families have tragic events in their life where they can no longer be with their loved ones? My family went through it. Things like after the crash, I ended up with a traumatic brain injury. If anyone is aware of brain injuries, you understand what it does to a person. You're not the same person you were before.
Ontario Solicitor General Michael Kersner said impaired drivers will be caught and urged motorists to make better decisions this holiday.
Still to come, a homeowner on thin ice with the city of Markham after building a massive rink in his backyard. The outcome of the rink rift coming up a little later in the newscast.
But first, Taylor Swift is hitting the stage tonight at Rogers Centre for night 4 of her 6-show run here in Toronto.
Excitement is building among Swifties lucky enough to snag tickets for the final stretch of her Eras tour in town. Our Mike Walker is live at Rogers Centre with more from fans. Looks like they're gathering already, Mike.
They sure are, Michelle and Nathan. And the bit of rain we've been experiencing this morning is not dampening spirits at all. And after a bit of a break from the first 3 shows, the city is buzzing again. As you can see, these Swifties, these fans are gathering. They are socializing as excitement builds for tonight's concert. Now, they've been gathering outside the Taylor Swift friendship bracelet signs attached to the Rogers Centre, taking selfies and exchanging friendship bracelets. Many fans we've been speaking to have traveled from across the United States and Canada, some telling us that they spent thousands of dollars on the secondary market for tickets. I spoke to two sisters, Heather and Sandra, who traveled here from Michigan. They have been working on some special eras outfits for months. They have tickets on the floor, and they are hoping to catch the pop superstar's attention. Here's more.
As part of the goal with the outfit, I made a skirt for every era, so they tear off, so I'll have a different outfit for every era.
And your in-law, she's been working on her outfit a whole bunch, and we did a whole video of like the skirts for each era, and we like put it online, hoping Taylor would see it.
It means everything. This is a trip that I've been planning for a long time. Her music means so much to me. I'm probably gonna cry like 10 times, but I can't wait. I've been just waiting.
No doubt the excitement we saw last week for the first three shows will continue here today and all day, as some 50,000 fans are expected to flood the downtown for tonight's concert. The gates open at 4:30. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Nathan, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. Time now for a check on the forecast. A wet afternoon, and the wet weather will continue off and on for the next few days. So have the umbrella handy. Not much sunshine either, but at least we are seasonal. Jessica Smith is here with a look at the current conditions, and at least the concert is indoors, but you're going to have to dress for it on the way there.
You will. It will impact your Swifty fit for the day, Nathan, but we are into a stretch of very seasonal but overcast weather. I'm here with two fans. We have Kate and Haley. They're from Fredericton. What brought you guys all the way here to see Lady Swift?
Last minute tickets.
Do you have a favorite era or favorite song?
Probably 1989.
And for you, Miss Hillary?
Reputation.
All right, we got to do the bracelet exchange.
Yes.
We'll do the bracelet exchange. Thank you, ladies, so much. Enjoy the show. And we'll get back to your forecast because it isn't the greatest of days, but you know what? That hasn't stopped any of the Swifty Magic or anybody else here in the city from having a fantastic time. A little unsettled as we head throughout the day today, but the good news is we are going to see a few breaks in all that rain. Now, temperature-wise, it feels significantly cooler, but it is just back to where it should be temperature-wise this time of year, right around southern Ontario. Now, throughout the afternoon, for the people coming down to the show, you're going to want to bring maybe a sweater, maybe a little bit of the rain gear, but the good news is at least we're sitting at a seasonal point with a very light wind. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast. I'll have more friendship bracelets, but for now, I'll send things back inside.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Jess. We turn to the battle over a massive backyard rink in Markham.
The owner dropping his gloves with the city, you could say, duking it out in what's been a long face-off over the outdoor amenities. CTV's Natalie Johnson has the story.
You have the rink done by a company called My Backyard Rinks.
Martin Ross is the first to admit that his backyard rink,
the glycol runs through those lines right there,
is a cut above the standard shinny shanty.
It's a beautiful outdoor rink that's kind of done properly. It's not your typical, 2x4 boards with a tarp thrown down.
A hockey haven in the back half of his massive backyard that has become the subject of a years-long dispute with both neighbors and the city.
Nightmare.
Tell me about that.
Yeah.
Ross lives in Markham's scenic Unionville, and his home has heritage designation. And so when he put up the rink during the pandemic without permission,
I did this for my kids.
It wasn't long before the city stepped in.
They are indeed the 600-pound gorilla to fight against.
Some neighbors incensed about Ross's overhaul of the heritage property, along with the noise and all the errant pucks that they say has come with the rink.
This gentleman has completely destroyed what was a gorgeous backyard full of greenery that supported privacy and quiet for the surrounding neighbors. And without permits, he went ahead and tore down massive 100-year-old trees and has turned it into a parking lot.
Ross admits he was wrong to cut down the trees, but has been fighting for his right to the rink. 2 years ago, a Superior Court ruled that the city of Markham can legally step in to remove it. Ross's recent attempt at an injunction was dismissed.
Mr. Ross has felt all the way along that he's above the law, that bylaws don't apply to him, that he doesn't have to behave in a way that any civilized neighbor would behave.
It's been stressful on me. It's been stressful on my kids.
The city of Markham telling CTV News in a statement that its lawyers and Ross have reached an agreement to restore the property to pre-2021 conditions. The remediation work will be carried out by the homeowner. Ross says he's preparing to reluctantly remove the rink.
Would we have Wayne Gretzky today if if Walter Gretzky didn't build the backyard rink that he built.
An unpermitted passion project that pitted hockey against heritage. A rink rift resolved after years on ice. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Some major changes are coming to the downtown core at the site of a former transit hub. The Toronto Coach Terminal was decommissioned in 2021, with intercity bus traffic moved to Union Station. But the city still owns the sites at 610 Bay Street and 130 Elizabeth Street. It announced today the area will be transformed into a mixed-use hub, including residential, retail, and public spaces, as well as some services for the surrounding community. And those developments will include 2 residential towers, which will include 873 rental units, approximately 1/3 affordable. Toronto Paramedic Services will open a new 23,000 square foot hub to increase emergency support in the area. And University Health Network intends to open a state-of-the-art organ repair center. Construction is expected to be completed through 2029 and 2030.
Premier Doug Ford spoke at the Ontario Chamber of Commerce this morning, announcing fee reductions in WSIB rebates for Ontario businesses.
Ford also reacted to the federal government temporarily lifting the GST on essential items this holiday season. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has more.
On his way out of a speech at Ontario's Chamber of Commerce, the Premier welcomed news of federal rebate checks and a limited GST holiday.
Tax cut's a good cut.
In that speech, Doug Ford says his government is always focused on finding ways to return cash to the people of Ontario.
So today, I'm thrilled to announce that our government is giving back to workers and businesses another $2.5 billion, that's billion with a B, through fee reductions and WSIB rebates.
The Premier says for a small business, say a bakery with fewer than 5 employees,
this could mean a refund of up to $2,300. For a small construction company with 50 employees, the refund could climb to $45,000. And for the growing company that has 100 employees, the refund could reach $70,000.
Cash to reinvest.
Back into their workers, into technology, into infrastructure, and into our economy, creating more jobs and opportunity.
The government is also reducing WSIB premiums, investing in safety and mental health programs, and eliminating fees for apprentices taking their first exams. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Ford government is also outlining plans for a crackdown on immigration scams. It focuses on the provincial program that nominates skilled applicants for permanent residence. Officials say the proposal would require more transparency and accountability from representatives and services hired to help those with applications. The legislation would set punishments, including bans and fines, for fraud and more serious offenses. To other news, in the Middle East, Gaza's health ministry says the death toll from the war between Israel and Hamas has surpassed 44,000. In northern Israel, local emergency services say a man was killed when several rockets fired from Lebanon today. The world's top war crimes court has issued arrest warrants for the leaders of Israel and Hamas. They're accused of crimes against humanity. The warrants against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant focus on allegations Israel has used food as a weapon in its campaign against Hamas in Gaza. Israel denies those claims.
Ukraine is working to confirm whether Russia launched an intercontinental ballistic missile overnight at one of its cities. The Ukrainians have not provided any evidence that an ICBM was used in the attack on Dnipro. If confirmed, it would be the first time Moscow has used such a weapon in this war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said a missile used in the strike matches the speed and altitude of an intercontinental ballistic missile.
Canada is welcoming the nomination of the U.S. ambassador to Canada designate. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says the Canadian government looks forward to working with Pete Hoekstra in strengthening bilateral ties and advancing shared priorities. Donald Trump announcing yesterday that the former member of Congress for Michigan will be his representative in Ottawa. In his first term as president, Trump tapped Hoekstra to serve as U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands.
We're nearly a week into the Canada Post strike with still no deal in sight, and the work stoppage is holding up mail delivery on everything from passports to letters to Santa. CTV's Renee Rogers joins us now. Renee, Talk to us about where talks stand. Clearly, it's almost a week now. It's not being resolved immediately. So where are things?
Hi, Michelle. Yes, so Canada Post and the union representing postal workers did make some progress on some smaller issues yesterday, but the two sides do remain far apart on key issues as the strike enters day 7. Now, that means, of course, mail and parcel delivery is still at a standstill, and that could mean bad news if you've applied for a Canadian passport and are still waiting to get it. The reason why? Well, approximately 85,000 passports that are ready to deliver are being held back by Service Canada. It actually started holding them on November 8th in anticipation of a strike to reduce the risk of them just sitting around in Canada Post distribution centres. They do say that they will be mailed out once service resumes. Now, if your passport is being held and you need it urgently because, let's face it, this is coming up to the holidays, a lot of people are going to be traveling, well, you can contact Service Canada and have them transfer it to one of their Service Canada locations. But keep in mind, if you mailed your application just before the strike, it's very possible that Service Canada has not received it. One thing that probably is the best thing to do at this time is to apply in person. If you still need to apply, you can do that at a Service Canada centre or a passport office, Michelle.
Passports, they're just one facet of what is really a widespread impact here. Talk to us about the ramifications and what else is being impacted.
Yeah, well, one thing that is being impacted this year is actually a 40-year tradition here in Canada, and that is letters to and from Santa at the North Pole. Canada Post and its volunteers have been helping to do that for quite a while now, decades, and they handle approximately 1.5 million letters, or up to 1.5 million letters per Christmas. Now, that not happening because of the strike. However, they say that the hope is that postal operations can resume as quickly as possible, and when that happens, they say that everyone who did write a letter to Santa will receive a response. Worth mentioning as well, Canada Post website says that in order to get a response before the holidays, you have to have your letter sent in by December 6th. That's still a couple of weeks away, so we will see what happens with the strike, Michelle, between now and then.
Perhaps they might make some more progress. CTV's Renee Rogers in the National Newsroom. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jess.
Well, it is day 4 of the 6 Taylor Swift shows, so if you're heading out this afternoon or this evening to get in early for the opening act or for Taylor herself, it is a little cooler out there, so layers are going to be essential. But we've already seen people outside in their full fits ready for the show this evening. They're not worried about the weather. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we head in towards the end of the week and look ahead to your weekend. All those details after the break.
It's a wet day, but the Swifties sure are bringing the sparkle. We're entering the back half of the Toronto leg of the Eras Tour. It goes tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure they're bringing a lot of sunshine with them, even though it's cloudy out there, Jess.
I don't think the Swifties care about the weather at all. I have 3 Swifties here from New York. They've come all the way. Tell me your name.
Quinn.
Quinn.
Grace.
And?
Rory.
So what is your favorite Taylor Swift song?
London Boy. The Alchemy. Bad.
They come prepared with their answers. I want you ladies to have so much fun here. I'm going to give you a bracelet.
Thank you.
There you go. Have the best time ever.
Thank you.
And I'll be cheering from you guys like loud and proud outside. You guys go have fun. I'm going to go and do the forecast because it kind of impacts our day. It's a little bit soggy out there, but overall, it really isn't that bad. We are back to seasonal, which, you know, we've been pretty lucky throughout the month of November with weather being well above where it should be in the 20s a couple weeks ago, but I don't think it's going to rain on anybody's parade, the fact that it is not the greatest. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers you don't pay unless they win. Now, it's a little cloudy out there, a little drizzly, but overall, I don't think it really impacts anything going on today. We've already seen lots of people outside. It's about 5 degrees right now here in the city of Toronto, 2 through Windsor and 5 out through Ottawa. As we head throughout our afternoon, a very seasonal day. It'll be 6 here in the 6, and we're holding on to cloud cover and drizzle. The chance of showers increases overnight tonight, and then we get into the day tomorrow with a lot more rain. But into this evening, again, still pretty warm, sitting at 5 degrees. We should be at -1. There is that system. It kind of rotates counterclockwise around southern Ontario. So although we get a bit of a break today, it's pretty short-lived. We head throughout our afternoon again. It is cooler and it feels so cool compared to last week, but we're just sitting at that seasonal point. Tonight, if you're heading out to the show, you might need an extra layer, but you won't need the umbrella until you're heading home. That's when we're likely to see a little more rain make its way through. Friday morning, a little more drizzle on the way, and then the showers get a little heavier through eastern Ontario as we head throughout the second half of the day, and then a little rainy in towards the evening. Now, looking ahead to your weekend, not a wash of a day, but a good idea again to keep your umbrella handy because you'll need it in the afternoon for the final of these 6 Taylor Swift shows. Now, temperature-wise, it is a little cool, but to be fair, this is just where we should be for this time of year. We're near the end of the month, and it really should be this weather the entire month, and we haven't seen it. So, into your Friday, a lot more rain out there. Keep that in the back of your mind when it comes to planning for your day. It will impact your commute, whether or not you're coming down to see Lady Swift. Into your Saturday, more showers on the way, but we're still sitting at or just above seasonal. In towards your Sunday, finally, a break from the rain, but it is short-lived as we head in towards our Monday. We do get a little warmer, but the active weather returns. As we make our way in towards our Tuesday and our Wednesday, generally it is a little bit cooler. That's when we start to dip a little below that seasonal average. So if you do have plans, again, in towards the end of the month, we are trending to a much more seasonal point. So if you do want to spend some time outdoors, you're going to want to plan ahead. Now, again, for the day today, as people make their way down to the city, whether they are here for Taylor Swift, maybe just enjoying the city of Toronto, it is definitely cooler. We've seen that drizzle off and on throughout the day, but it has not impacted the spirits of anybody down to see the show. Again, showers are going to be heavier as we head through the overnight, so not so much impacting the Swifties or anybody here in the city before the show, but it's as you're heading home in the evening that things will start to change significantly. And then throughout your Friday, a lot more rain, so you'll need that waterproof Swiftie gear if you're making your way down to the city or you're just existing in the city of Toronto. Hopefully this helps everybody plan on what is going to be, I'm sure, another very busy day here in the city of Toronto. But for now, Nathan and Michelle, I will send things back inside to you.
All right. Thank you, Jess. We've been talking about it all day. Taylor Swift returns to the stage in Toronto tonight, and legions of fans with bracelets in hand will be there.
One Swiftie from Calgary will be a little short, however, after airport officials seized a bag of her beads during her journey here. From the giant friendship bracelets adorning Rogers Centre to exchanging with other Taylor Swift fans, these bracelets are synonymous with Swifties.
That we can do to show each other that, you know, we really understand why we all love Taylor, why her music is so important to us.
But Caitlin Medrick arrived in Toronto from Vancouver for today's concert empty-handed.
I was really counting on that 4 hours to make my beads on the plane and make my bracelets.
After stopping in Calgary to pick up her mom, she says airport security flagged an issue, the amount of beads she had in her carry-on. Medrick says she was forced to toss more than $100 worth of beads in the garbage, left with this small bag. She says there was no issue with airport security in Vancouver.
And why the inconsistencies between airports.
The Canadian Air Transport Security Authority states on its website solid beads in quantities of 350 milliliters or less are permitted in carry-ons. Those that exceed 350 milliliters are permitted subject to a visual inspection. CATSA also warns certain powders and granular materials may require additional screening, and in some cases the items may not be permitted.
There's always the ability in their protocols to just, do visual inspection or anything else that is needed to confirm it's not drugs or explosives.
CTV public safety analyst Chris Lewis says the protocols are meant to ensure safety, but in this case,
I think they overdid it, and it was really an unnecessary thing.
After touching down in Toronto, Medrick filed an official complaint with CATSA. This has bewildered other Swifties who say they traveled here with beads and bracelets in their carry-ons.
They didn't have a problem with me going through, and there's so many other people going through with beads.
CATSA says it takes all complaints seriously, but can't comment on this incident with the investigation now underway.
Eris Tour 416.
As for Medrick, she's connecting with other Swifties here.
There's been so many amazing Swifties coming to the rescue, offering beads, offering bracelets.
Who are helping her start from scratch.
Still ahead, if you're looking to get away this winter somewhere warm and more tropical, there's a new vaccine to help protect against the mosquito-borne disease. We've got the details after the break.
As the weather cools down, many Canadians' thoughts turn to warm climates and tropical settings.
And now there's a new vaccine to help protect against one particular mosquito-borne disease. Here's our health reporter Pauline Chan with the details.
2 years ago, Bruce Whale and his partner were in Mexico for their annual winter vacation.
I woke up in the middle of the night, my hands were hurting. It was very painful. But then as each day increased, I started getting very sore joints. My muscles started hurting. I had a fever.
It was chikungunya, a mosquito-borne illness that Whale had never really heard of at the time.
Chikungunya is virtually non-existent in Canada endemically, but we do see cases of it clinically in terms of returning travelers or people who are visiting friends and relatives.
Dr. Paul Jones says there are some 114 countries where the disease is endemic, including India, Mexico, Brazil, and countries in East Africa. But a new vaccine has just been approved in Canada to protect against chikungunya. It's called Ixchiq.
It's a live attenuated vaccine that basically we give to patients. There's contraindications. You can't give it to someone who's pregnant or breastfeeding or intending to be so, but it appears to be safe in those 18 plus, including elderly individuals.
It's not covered by OHIP and costs about $200. But for travelers like Bruce Whale, who also picked up the Zika virus, another mosquito-borne illness, the vaccine is well worth it.
The vaccine would be of great use to those who have not had it, and I highly recommend it. For me, I have a natural immunity to it now.
It may be that we're undercounting the mortality that is attributable to chikungunya because often people don't die of the disease, they die of complications of the disease, especially if they have pre-existing conditions such as heart disease, lung disease, diabetes, kidney disease.
And Dr. Jones reminds travelers that it takes time for vaccines to take full effect, so now is the time to look into getting travel vaccinations before that winter vacation. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
A new poll is shedding light on a number of potential impacts arts and culture can have on the broader community. Ipsos polled 1,000 Canadians on behalf of Canada Helps. It found 13% of Canadians who never take part in arts and culture events in person report feeling lonely and isolated. That's compared to just 7% of those who do so once a week. Those who never engaged with arts and culture in person were less likely to describe their mental health as excellent or very good.
A group of scientists that includes a virologist from Saskatoon say they have new evidence about the origins of COVID-19. They believe it jumped from an infected animal to humans in a Chinese seafood market rather than a leak from a lab. CTV's Alison Bamford has the details.
A team of scientists is strengthening its case that COVID-19 didn't come from a Chinese lab, instead a seafood market in Wuhan. But up until now, conflicting evidence made it hard to prove that animals at the market were the source of transmission.
We have evidence that the infection spread outward in the human population from the market. Now we have information that proves that those animals were at the market, and we know that at least some of them were susceptible.
Like the raccoon dog, the most common animal at the market, according to DNA samples collected from the area. But that evidence hasn't been able to tell scientists if they were actually infected yet.
There will always be speculation because one can never fully understand every aspect of that. But I think that this does hazard a very close approximation of where the viruses come from.
COVID-19's origin has been widely debated. In a classified document last year, the U.S. Department of Energy reported with low confidence the pandemic most likely came from a Wuhan laboratory leak.
I think it's very, very difficult to explain a laboratory origin with the evidence that we have now.
Possible answers to arguably one of the most critical questions of the pandemic. How did it start?
It's always important to know as much as we can about a pandemic or about viruses to figure out how they spread, how they develop, and how they get where they are so that we can help reduce the risk of them happening in the future.
Researchers from this lab are performing more tests to see what other animals could have been susceptible to the virus. Based on the existing evidence, they say we may never know which infected animal started the pandemic. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, shares dipped in early trading for popular chip maker NVIDIA. Details on why and the rest of your business headlines when we return. Shares in chipmaker Nvidia, the darling of tech investors, slipped 1% in early trading amid fears over production costs.
Andrew Bella Bloomberg has the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Nvidia shares were slightly down in early trading today after the U.S. chip giant's sales forecast for this quarter lagged some of the most optimistic estimates. The company also said its rush to get new chips out of the door is proving costlier than expected. One analyst warned, quote, "There's little room for execution missteps in 2025. Shares in Montreal-based clothing retailer Groupe Dynamite fell 2% in Toronto today after a $300 million initial public offering of stock, Canada's first such corporate listing since March of last year. The company has 300 stores in the US and Canada under the Dynamite and Garage brands. And finally, if you're south of the border and the Starbucks baristas seem cranky, cut them a break. The company cut its US retail workforce by 8% in the most recent year, even as the chain added hundreds of new locations. Headcount has been an area of concern for employees. One worker said, quote, "We are constantly only given a skeleton staff." That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
Also today, a major change took effect for Canadians who have uninsured mortgages. That means those with a minimum 20% down payment. The federal banking regulator is no longer asking those homeowners to pass its stress test if they're looking to switch to another mortgage provider at renewal. The updated rule only applies to borrowers who aren't adding to their loan period or amount. Financial experts say the change makes it easier for homeowners to shop around for better rates when their mortgage term is up.
We've heard a lot about the economic impact of Taylor Swift's 6 concerts here in Toronto. Now, a new report is shedding some light on how that money's being spent. Manera says during the first 3 shows last week, spending in Toronto was up 57% week over week. Spending from international visitors more than doubled, up 126%. And as Swifties got their looks together for the Eras tour, accessory stores saw a 78% boost in spending, and clothing stores saw a 32% jump. Restaurant spending didn't move much, but snack shops saw a 61% increase in cash coming in.
We have done several stories on roofing scams recently, and one of the worst ones involved a woman scammed out of more than $150,000.
Following our report, we had a tip from a viewer, which we passed on to police and has led to a crack in the case. CTV's Pat Foran has the update.
Getting that money back, boy, oh boy, did that make me feel so good, and my family too.
Sita Dubois of Scarborough was feeling a lot better than when we first met her in September. At that time, she was devastated after hiring 2 men for a simple job installing gutter guards. But when they got on her roof, they said her home was about to cave in.
Extremely shocked, just in a state of disbelief, but you're scared about it.
They said the repairs would be $158,000, and she had to pay in advance.
Went over to the bank, got whatever they asked for, paid the whole thing.
After they got the money, they didn't come back, and her son found out the photos of the rotting roof weren't from their house.
Immediately, this is a scam, so I called her and said, you got to stop, do not give them any more money, call the police.
Following our story, a viewer said he recognized both men and that they weren't from Canada. We passed the information on to the Toronto police, who contacted Interpol, the international police organization.
She referred all this to Interpol because one of your viewers had recognized the guys from the pictures taken at her house.
Our story also got picked up in the UK by the Daily Mail, which talked about the roofing scam and showed photos of the 2 men. The investigation is ongoing, but Toronto's fraud squad has recovered $80,000, which was just returned to Dubois.
The officer was able to track the money that I had given the scammers, and she actually got back $80,000 for me, which is half of the amount.
The case remains open, and Dubois is hopeful more of her money can be recovered. She is grateful and thankful she contacted CTV News.
You've done an awesome job. I couldn't have asked for anything better. I love CTV News and I love Pat Foran. So thank you guys very, very much. You're the best.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Two Canadian companies have been named in a proposed class action lawsuit in the United States, alleging they're part of a so-called potato cartel that's fixed the price of frozen products for years. CTV's Sarah Plowman has the details.
The companies behind these frozen fries share more than shelves. They're both defendants in a pair of U.S. class action lawsuits. Canadian companies McCain Foods and Cavendish Farms are two of four potato processors accused of conspiring to illegally fix their prices in the U.S. and overcharge customers.
The allegations are troubling if they prove to be true.
One lawsuit was filed by a consumer who alleges the companies have access to each other's pricing data, saying with direct line of communication to each other, the potato cartel moves prices skyward in lockstep, harming all purchasers of potatoes in the process. The other lawsuit was launched by a grocery chain that alleges from 2021 until now, the companies brought in lockstep price increases that allowed them to realize unprecedented margins. None of the allegations have been tested in court. McCain Foods tells CTV News it strongly disputes any allegation the company violated antitrust laws or any other laws with respect to the sale of frozen potato products, adding it will vigorously defend the recently filed lawsuits.
Is this collusive behavior then, or is it just coincidence? We've seen it before in the U.S. where they brought allegations of price fixing and conspiring to fix the market. It's a very difficult thing to prove.
Analysts say raising prices in line with competitors is nothing unusual.
The big part of this is that you don't speak to them about it. You don't communicate with them about it.
A spokesperson for Canada's Competition Bureau says, quote, they're aware of enforcement action taken in other jurisdictions relating to this industry, adding they can't confirm whether they are or will be investigating these companies. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
In sports, the Maple Leafs were looking for a third straight win when they faced off with the Vegas Golden Knights last night.
Absence of Hock and Pop, centering pass, scores! It's Fraser Minten with his first NHL goal!
A recent call-up, Fraser Minten giving the Leafs an early lead with, you heard it, his first NHL goal. The team added two more goals late on their way to a 3-0 victory. The Leafs are back on the ice Sunday to play the Utah Hockey Club.
Able to win that, and Matthew Nyes through center, big stiff hit.
But Toronto is down yet another forward. Matthew Nyes left last night's game in the second period after being hit by Vegas defenseman Zach Whitecloud. There was no penalty called on the hit that was ruled legal. Nyes is still being evaluated. The coach says he's feeling okay today.
The Raptors will look to make it back-to-back wins for the first time this season as they host the Timberwolves tonight.
Here's RJ Barrett, crossover, attacking. Siakam gets around him with a reverse in the left.
Toronto snapped a 7-game losing streak Monday with a 130-119 win over the Pacers. R.J. Barrett scored 39 points, while Jakob Poeltl had another massive night with 30 points and 15 rebounds. Poeltl is averaging 18.5 points and 12.5 rebounds per game over his last 12. Tip-off tonight is just after 7:30. And coming up, a volcano in Iceland is erupting for the 10th time in 3 years. How the city's preparing after the break.
A volcano near Iceland's capital is erupting for the 10th time in 3 years. Amazing photographs show the intensity of the eruption as lava gushes from a long fissure. As magma accumulated underground, authorities had warned of imminent volcanic activity on the peninsula. The capital city has not been directly affected by this eruption and has not sent a significant amount of ash into the stratosphere, avoiding air traffic disruption.
Let's check back in with Jessica Smith. How are things outside, Jess?
Nathan, it is so good. We are still so early into the day, but I'm here with more amazing Swifties that gave me more bracelets. Talk to me about what brought you guys down. I know obviously you guys are big Swiftie fans, but what made you want to come all the way to the city of Toronto and hang out with us?
That's where we got tickets. We tried to get tickets for multiple cities, and we got lucky and got into the pre-sale and were able to buy our tickets for face value.
See, that's where you got to get them as face value. What is it about Taylor Swift that brings people together? Because I feel like I've been seeing people all morning. The show is not until tonight, but they are here in costume just like you guys are ready. What is it about her?
I think it's because she covers so many different genres that she literally has an album for everyone. Like growing up, we always listened to different music, but Taylor Swift was the thing that brought us together. It was the one thing, no-brainer for us.
And the outfits obviously are to die for. What inspired your look today?
For me, it's Lover. For her, it's Rep. And I made both of them, like just the embellishments and such. And it was a really fun time.
I love the custom outfits. Thank you so much, ladies. Enjoy. I still have to do my job and talk about the weather, but you know what? It's a little gray and a little drizzly, but it has not stopped anybody from having the most amazing time. And it is going to stay fairly seasonal as we head throughout the day. So the good news is it doesn't get cooler outside. It just doesn't get any warmer, but that's okay. It is going to be quite nice. And we're watching for this unsettled weather to stick with us. So just maybe bring an umbrella, some rain gear as you make your way out and about this afternoon. Temperature-wise, sitting at 5 here in the city, and over the next 7 days, it is seasonal. It is a little rainy, but you know what? There's so much joy in the city. It's fine. I'll send things back to you.
All right, thank you. And that is CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Jessica Smith and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Downer. Be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6. Have a great afternoon.
There we go.